Welcome to the Social Engineer Podcast Security Awareness Series. We're in episode 156. I'm Chris Hadnagy, founder and CEO of Social Engineer LLC, social-engineer.org, and the Innocent Lives Foundation. I've been hosting this podcast since way back in 2009. And at this episode, I am joined by my awesome friend and co-host, Ryan McDougall. Ryan, thanks for being here with me today.
Hey, Chris. Happy to be here. So I'm Ryan McDougall. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Social Engineer LLC. I'm also the lead open source intelligence trainer at SECom. And I've been training at Black Hat and DerbyCon and private and public trainings for quite a while. I've been in the information technology industry for almost 24 years now. It shocks me every time I say that.
Since you're only 26, that is shocking.
Yeah, I guess so. Not 26. Disclaimer. Last 9 years have been focused mostly on adversary simulation and security awareness, so it's great to be here.
And since Ryan brought it up, we are sponsoring this episode right here at social-engineer.com. We're your trusted information security company specializing in anything fully managed that has to do with social engineering, like voice phishing, or we call it vishing, or email phishing programs such as security assessments or OSINT assessments and different things like that. You can't look in the news today without seeing another security threat, another breach, something else horrible that has happened in the world of InfoSec. And that's really our goal, is to focus on how we can help your company to combat those things, to teach your people to be educated, so that way that you can get past these problems and not be the next headline on the news. You can check it out, social-engineer.com, see all of our offerings, and we hope if you have any questions, just reach out to us. Now, before we get to the show, let me give you 3 other announcements. We get a lot of people in our Slack channel, over 1,000 now. If you didn't know we were running a Slack channel, you can get the link down in the show notes down there, right below us here, because we have, like I said, over 1,000 people every day talking about everything from the psychology to pretext ideas. We have active professional social engineers in the chat, giving out ideas and helping each other. People who are in school for this, actually learning from some of the professionals. And we've had 7 or 8 people find careers on our career board on the Slack channel. So if you're interested in that, please join us. Just come in. It doesn't matter if you're experienced or not. It's a friendly, family-friendly environment where you can come in and talk about anything to do with the human vector. Also, we'd like to give a shout out to the best rock and roll band on the planet Earth, Clutch. You can check them out, pro-rock.com. I know it's still pandemic, but they're bold enough to go do a tour. If you're wearing a mask, go see them. Check them out. They are the intro music and outro music for this podcast. And the lead singer, Neil Fallon, is part of our nonprofit, the Innocent Lives Foundation. So please check that out at the innocentlives.org, where you can find out information about our amazing team there. We're working with law enforcement around the globe to help find people who are trafficking children and hurting children and creating child abuse material, and helping law enforcement locate where they are and serving them justice. We're not a vigilante group, but you could check out what it is that we do and how you can support it on innocentlivesfoundation.org. And our last announcement, I said 3, I lied. There was 4. There was 4 because it's brand new, because I am really, really, really excited about this one. So you heard me talk about our conference. We had it for 3 years now. Wait, 2 years, 3 years. How long has it been, Ryan? It feels like eternity. 3 years. And we're changing the name. So after 2 years, I don't know. We've had it a few times. Okay. It's been so much fun. It feels like I've been doing it forever, but we're changing it from the Human Hacking Conference to the Human Behavior Conference. We took a huge leap to change the name of the conference in the hope that it will help our audience better understand what the conference aims to do. And that's really what our goal is. We realized that by calling it human hacking, we were kind of limiting to just the InfoSec industry. And yet the last 2 years, we had people coming from every industry we can possibly imagine and learning from that. Now, we have brought some of the most amazing trainers and experts in communication, social psychology, physical and psychological influence, social engineering. So we hope that you'll join us for 3 days, which will be held at the Rosen Center Hotel in Orlando, March 24 through 26, 2022. You can go to humanbehaviorcon.com. So for conference, humanbehaviorcon.com to get more information. You'll see names there like Joe Navarro, Robin Dreek, Amy Cuddy is coming down, Amy Herman. I could go on and on and on. R. Paul Wilson. We have some amazing people coming in for that conference. So head over to the website. You can get it in the show notes and join us there. Okay, now let's get to the reason why we're all here. I am really, really excited about this month's guest, Les Correa, who leads the evangelization of Estee Lauder's application security. In his position, he's one of those guys, we call him an official hat rack because he wears a lot of hats. But all of them have one mission, which is protecting Estee Lauder's critical assets from the risk of security breaches. Prior to this, Les held senior and advisory roles, providing thought leadership at companies such as AT&T and Lucent, which is also amazing since, as you can see, he's also 26. So I don't know where he found the time to do all this. He has an MSc in cybersecurity as well as an exhaustive list of other certifications, which we won't read because we know we all are sick of hearing all of those, right? But here's some fun facts about Les. He also is a pilot in his spare time, and he races race cars. I don't know where that came from, but we got some fun facts on Les. Les, I can't thank you enough for being part of the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Chris, Ryan, and the team as well. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the good work you're doing for the Innocence Lives Matter. And I was privileged enough to attend one of your classes, the social engineering thing at Black Hat in 2018. It was an honor because, and everyone asked me because I'm, a technologist at heart, and they thought I'd do the hacking, the regular hacking stuff and all that. And they couldn't figure out why would I spend time with social engineering. I want to say this because it's an important thing, and I think that's the missing link to everything that happens today. And unfortunately, we as human beings, we tend to react to news. Yeah. But if you look at the crux of the problem is, it's human behavior and thinking. I'm glad you're changing it. It's news to me that you're changing the name itself.
We didn't plan this.
But this is the human mind. And I really do believe that's the future. And I speak about, I've been reading off and on because I'm continuously learning, can you get machines, whether it be use artificial intelligence or any way to kind of imbibe and learn, and curate the knowledge that, that all the human beings have, or, the knowledge. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to say, I hope not. I hope we can't, because then Skynet's the next thing, so I don't know. I don't want machines to be able to do all of it, but.
No, but it gives us time. We always said, when computers came in, we thought, hey, you know what? Then we're going to have people who are unemployed. But it's actually, you learn to do other things, right? So, and then you let machines do the other stuff and you oversee it, or you're accountable for those actions. So that's my thinking. And, we always need to get better because, it's easy. And I'm going into this whole philosophical thing, right? The bad people, or, whenever you have intentions, it would be bad and good is a relative term anyway. So it depends on which side you are. But you have to be right once because you have a complete intention. But when you're trying to defend something, you have to be right. Try to be right all the time. So therefore, that thinking changes, and then you delve into, once something happens, how do you defend against it? So it's almost like getting into the crisis management. You have to be good at that. And that's why I really applaud you for bringing it. I wish I can bring you, and I hope to bring you into our company to speak to our folks, because, it's always lightened up. When you say social engineering, they think of just the basic awareness, which, all of us click, and it doesn't mean anything. You just do it for compliance needs, as against, the human mind, which is absolutely crazy. Anyway, that's my spiel.
No, that's okay. I want to ask you, because you have some interesting thoughts and philosophies. Yeah. How did you get into the industry? I mean, were you always in InfoSec, or where did you start?
Oh, no. Well, actually, I've been in InfoSec for a long, long time. I graduated in math physics, and, but, unlike today, like everyone's like, they're focused from a young age. I was always into many, many things, and I did math physics. But even in math, I wanted the abstract stuff rather than what everyone else was doing.
What were you going to do with math and physics? What was that degree? I'm confused. Like, what was the plan for a math and physics degree?
If you ask me today, I had these thoughts. Oh, I'll be a mathematician, I guess. And Chinese theorem and all those little things. But it's those abstract stuff that always, intrigued me. And, so I kind of was proactive in learning new things, and I started getting into programming and all that stuff. It's old school programming, by the way. It's not like what you do today where you share a lot of code. It was writing things. And I'm saying this because people along the way gave me an opportunity to, hey, try this. Mm-hmm. So I started off as an operator, if you will. And then the operating stuff, I would take, I was reading books because I'm self-taught. But self-taught then, okay? And then over time you learn and you get, mentors along the way and so on. So I started learning, everybody was learning the high-level languages, what we call high-level languages. I went into assembly and, the bits and bytes because I wanted to, and I now I'm ashamed to say that, but I crashed so many machines without anyone knowing because I was trying to create this. I understood I was reading these things in theory that, you have this mind that, you can do the same thing. So I started crashing machines and nobody knew. I would automate stuff, operational stuff. I didn't want to do it. So I would write a script such that, and that time, you share memory space. So I was tickling with a lot of stuff. So that's my kind of, I didn't really tell you the whole answer, but basically I self-taught myself going into this. I started challenging myself all the time. I'd read books. At that time, I grew up in the Commonwealth, so I would read the British Institute, their standards by which they were building. It was a level of a master's at that time, but I was just learning stuff. But it was all, I had nobody to tell me, so I would start learning. And I think the human mind does that all the time for any. You learn to just go and make it work by yourself, being proactive, if you will.
So part of the thing we read about you was your goal is helping to make sure you could stop breaches from occurring at your current job with Estee Lauder. What does that look like? How are you trying to be proactive in that? Actually,
now, I must state that we've grown within the organization itself. I can't tell you too much about our organization for obvious reasons, but in my space, we collaborate. So the good news is that at the top, they have embraced the notion of being secure and stopping breaches. So Nice. We've got entire groups. I'm in the app space now, which is now today everything is code, if you will. So we are trying to collaborate. We're trying to create mechanisms by which we alert and also improve behavior, the stuff that you mentioned, awareness, and by creating, you'll hear that term, it's often used, champions, but basically it's communities of different groups of people. So you'll have business, that's the intent, okay? Having business people, having developers, having operational folks, having security folks, and almost sharing that knowledge by, I spent time, for example, learning from the business and learn the business, how the business work, what makes them tick. Otherwise, security ends up being only the know kind of folks. So you spend a day in a life and keep creating those communities wherein you can cascade that knowledge by creating also that collaborative environment is against, different silos. It's not to say that we are not silent. You require behavior changes as well, but that's the. I hope I answered the question.
How important for you has it been to have that support from your leadership? You said that you have the top level now involved in wanting to be secure. How important has that been in making these changes you're talking about?
Oh, in large organizations, it's absolutely important. Otherwise, look, I think in anything, especially in the business world, right? Everything is money in the end. You have to show numbers, right? And you have to show value, and you have to create a method by which. That's why it's important to even understand the business. to understand what makes them tick, and show them the value of doing things early on, embedding right in the beginning as against reacting later and all that stuff. So it's extremely important, and for that you need a buy-in at the top. And without that, otherwise it's always a fight, a constant fight. You might have good intentions, but you don't have the funds, you don't have all the other support, because if anything does happen, say, hey, you guys are supposed to fix it anyway. So
how do you get these other business units to give you the time to learn what they're doing? Everybody's got their thing to do and they don't want to be stopped in what they're doing. How do you inject yourself into these other parts of the business to be able to get that insight?
No, that is why the importance of creating the intent here, right? Because we are still growing through that eating kind of problems. It is of creating these communities, and we have within the organization, we built those monthly newsletters, by saying newsletters, video casts, and so on and so forth. But by expressing by also linking it to the business itself, right? So when you develop certain methods, you need to kind of align to where the company's trying to go. You're trying to build widgets. You have to show where all the processes and how they all tie in to the information that you have to secure. So once you show that, and that's why it's important, right? Also to understand the business and the business processes and so on and so forth. So because then you can relate and you can talk in the language. It's important to be business advisors, I think, as more than, just, the tech, because the tech, you'll always get techies to do things in the end, but you need to speak in the language that's common to the business itself.
This is an interesting thought, Les, that we haven't had this on the podcast yet. So I want to delve here a little more, because we get a lot of questions from people that will ask, like, how can we get our upper level management in? How can we get buy-in? Like, they're reluctant to want to do this because they think it's going to be bad for the company. But I just heard something that I haven't heard from you yet, which is, I haven't heard from anyone yet. I mean, I heard from you. Understanding the business like a business consultant can help you to speak in the language that can make people feel like you actually, and not just feel it because you do, that you actually care about that business unit and you want to help them be secure, and you're not just the IT guy that's looking to fish them or do whatever.
Yeah, and I say, you're absolutely right, because it's one of these things, and I've seen that through our lives and been in the industry for a while. And I think my thing was, my introduction to this whole thing was getting into business continuity and business impact analysis. I will say this directly because it helped me understand, hey, people talk, and I'm digressing a little bit and then say why it's important, right? When you talk that language, it clicks right away. First of all, you need to communicate well, but the main important thing is, say, if my goal is to build widgets, manufacture widgets, I need to know all the processes involved and all the applications that touch it. And eventually those applications are storing some data somewhere or sharing some. If you know that and you can speak that, it's gold. Mm-hmm. But it requires work, right? It requires a lot of work. It's not like, I can just come from somewhere and just talk. You need to engage with the business. You need to understand exactly how it goes. It requires work. So that requires a thought process of building this whole knowledge base and, sharing, and then talk in that language. Now, if you're talking at different levels, you can even relate in very basic terms, like, hey, you've got the, typical hacking stuff. You've got one of these sticks you pick up, you relate to very personal stuff. You got your iPhones, or you got you can relate in those things, and you built that good synergy, if you will. Being good listeners, all those little things that, Chris, you teach that in your classes. All those, I think that helps behaviors and, and having relationships and, priming for that kind of thinking, if you will.
Yeah. To me, it's an interesting thought, because, there is, from what you're saying, there would be a lot of upfront work. And
absolutely,
that can turn some people off, like where you're thinking, well, I already have this job, right? So I got hired and my job is to, conduct the security awareness campaigns in my company here. But now we're saying, hey, go learn about how this business unit does their job. So that way, when you're talking to the owner of that business unit, you can explain to them why doing the security awareness training your way is so beneficial, and you're not just saying it in your words, right?
It's in context, right? It's in context, but that's happens in real life, right? You and I talk about certain things, or say you love good wines, or you love good food, or whatever it is, right? But once you can get that thing, I'm just saying that those basic tenets, it's human nature. You'll be able to engage. It's hard. There's no way, but that's the way you get better, right? At learning things and speaking in business terms is absolutely important.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Like, I have a friend. Ryan and I have a really good friend that is like a Rain Man when it comes to whiskey. Right, so his name is Jim, and he knows.
Did I meet him at your wedding?
Oh, you probably did, Jim Manley.
With the Scots.
So this guy's amazing, right? And I look at now. I would love to be like him, but I don't have the motivation to spend the time to learn the amount of knowledge that he has. Like, I could pull any bottle off my shelf and show it to Jim, and he'll tell me where it was made, what the yeast was, how many years it was in the barrel, what kind of barrel it was, if the barrel came from America or wherever. I mean, he knows that level of detail. And when he talks about scotch or whiskey to a person, you almost you could be a whiskey hater and you want to try it now, right? Because of that. Mm-hmm. So when you were talking, I started thinking about that, about Jim and how he can get anyone to really want to try things because his description, his knowledge of it, and how amazing that would be to apply that to this industry, to security awareness, right? If you know the business unit, you could talk about it with such passion. You're going to make people want to do this with you.
That's a technique. And I think, in fact, that's a cue, right? For you, building this whole awareness program. When you go to customers, and I'm thinking aloud here, obviously it's off the cuff, but hey, if you understood the basic business stuff, you could ask some interview questions ahead of time. You could build a straight case which actually relates directly, as against saying, hey, don't do this, don't click this. It's very direct. And I think it's more credible. It's that credibility. You'll never be a expert like Jim, right? But at least you're coming into that space where you're building that synergy, and then the person you're talking to will add more. It's so then it gives you more. It's that ideation and
I agree with that 100%. I'll not be like, I'll need 70 years to get there and a lot of motivation and desire. And I don't have that for what he has. And I don't have the memory. Like, I think I could try to learn those things, but I'd forget them. So,
but that's also, you're saying that it's a lot of work to put in the effort to learn that about those business units, but the payoff is so much more. You get so much out of that.
And I'm going to say this, right? And why it's more important, right? You will, once you learn this, and I'm not saying that I'm an expert by any way, because, I've come along the way and there've been people ahead of, before me. But that kind of thinking, right, even in a company, focusing on what's important is much better than just saying, do all this and that. And, so, and then you'll also be able to prioritize, if building manufacturing, or is it sales, or, there you can immediately say so direct. And so when you're doing that awareness, you're also raising that awareness. The whole company is growing with you.
Mm-hmm. It also gives you the opportunity to tailor your training to those business units, to what's important to them. Because giving someone the same training across an entire company isn't always going to be effective. So if you actually learn that specific point of that business unit, then you can focus your training for that business unit, and it makes sense to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a nice correlation. So let's bring this to something real world. What kind of attacks have you seen? Without giving away too much detail about your business unit, what kind of attacks have you seen in the wild that you think people need to be aware of?
Oh, Lord. I think a lot of it comes to ransomware is a big thing all over the place. And remember, because we are, it's spread around the world, in many, many countries, big getting hit all over the place. There's privacy issues. There's other things. I always think compliance is always a reactive part of it. But if you practice good hygiene hygiene, both in terms of privacy, although the word privacy is now abused, we use, the term privacy is like, it's regulations, but there's, you'll always figure it out, especially you guys that you use your OSINT techniques and other behaviors, you'll just figure it out. But I think practicing good hygiene and all that stuff and building that up, basically even with the awareness, only helps rather than just, I think most companies today, business, at least here in the US, actually mainly all over, is, we focus on compliance because there are fines and all that stuff. But there's always other ways around it and all that stuff. I think just practicing good hygiene is the best method. And I mentioned also crisis management is important because you'll never be able to completely prevent. So have a good method by which you can, manage that crisis.
Yeah, if we can figure out a way to completely prevent, then we can do this next podcast from our private island.
I know.
Right,
And I'll come and visit.
Yeah. We'll fly you in on our jet, okay? Because, that's what we'll be doing if we can figure that out. Ryan, get on that, will you?
Yeah.
I want my private island, man, and my jet.
Right.
Come on. What are you doing here?
On that.
What's your bio
Really
say?
not enough. Really not enough.
So, Les, how do we do that? How do we, let's just talk about ransomware for a second. You got people who may either not know what ransomware is or I've heard people say this to me. Who's going to want to hack me? I mean, I got $14 in the bank, so how do we get people that may not think that they can be a victim to understand that these threats are still against them?
Oh, it's not only them, it's them and everyone around them, right? So even if you say, hey, I'm a small fry here at home, but today's world is all connected.
Yeah.
I can find out through you, who your friends are and whether they are on vacation and where to attack, even whether it's physically to go. I don't know that you can ever. That's why it's raising that awareness of it goes back to your whole social behaviors and engineering that you mentioned about phishing, vishing, and all that stuff. It's all connected, and that's why I feel so bad because people don't get it. I feel, and it's a shame because it's been years, and you keep saying it comes back to the human mind because we always find a way around, beating, whether it's by, priming people to think some way and then going the other way around. It's all, it's been there forever. It's even crazier than, the sexy part of, I hacked this website. Which is, it's a human mind which you'll always find another way. We all do that.
When your company is spread across the world in so many different places, how do you translate your security awareness or your security processes through all of those different cultures and different mechanisms in which different countries just function?
We haven't. I would say that in general, depending on where your headquarters are, maturing is hard. Okay, I think all companies are thinking in different parts. I'll tell you, if you work, for example, in China, if you work in Russia and all that stuff, you have to think slightly differently, either build completely parallel stuff. But you mentioned something which is actually very, I care about a lot, is cultures. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do a bad, being culturally astute is so important because we tend to forget sometimes that, hey, the world is made up of different cultures and we have to respect them for what they are. I know, for example, a simple example is we tend to be very high level in general, but if you go to certain cultures, they're so detailed, they'll just go into the very nitty gritty but that's the way they are. Other cultures want to talk about everything else before they get into the details. And then you have the concept of also not challenging leadership, right? If you go down to, particularly the Asian countries, right, where maybe it could have been Confucianism or others where you don't challenge the top. And therefore it's hard to break that kind of thinking unless they are allowed to, speak openly as like we are, we don't care who that other person is. Not we don't care, it's that we're just so direct, and people get surprised. They say, oh, you're talking to you see the vice president. You're like, hey, we just said it. If you don't think twice about it. So anyways, I know I digressed a little bit, but yeah, culturally it's important to be very cognizant about other cultures, even colors, and all the, respect their behaviors or respect language. Sometimes we look at a different accent, and only the other way to look at it is saying, hey, if that person's got a different accent, they probably speak another language that I don't know.
So do you
and you have to respect them for that.
Do you translate them physically into the different languages?
Yeah. We are very cognizant. In fact, we are so cognizant that it has to be, even if you remember, like in Europe, it's the small little countries, right? That's why the point of presence is so important, because you have to have different languages. And you can't, like if the pop is in, say, France, and or maybe the pop is maybe in the Arab countries, right? It should translate there because it automatically picks up from where it is.
Yeah, so that's a lot of work to then get the materials, the training into all those different dialects and languages around the globe.
And the idioms are different, right?
Yeah.
So because you might say something here, which, it means, I'm in seventh heaven or whatever that is, right? And then you say that in another country, they won't even know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. We do use those little phrases here at times.
Yeah.
I've done that a couple times. I've had some classes that I taught that were translated. I had like an actual living translator next to me, and I would say like a very American phrase. And this last class, she said, I don't even know how to translate that. Like, what does that mean? And I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. Okay. Yeah. That's a very American phrase, and that doesn't. If you don't know the meaning, how do you even translate what the meaning is? That's interesting. Let me divert a second, because we talked in the beginning about your hobbies, like piloting and race car racing and things like that. How important for you do you think it is for people, especially now, like we're this global pandemic? We've been out of the office for almost 2 years. How important do you think it is to have hobbies outside of our work?
Speaking for myself, I think it's so important. It's so important. Even things like, it could be music is a big thing. The arts is like superb, I think, because it creates that, that creative thinking that all of us forget. We always think technical, but like that's that whole other part of the brain, which is that creative, actually gets into your whole social engineering, that, right? Part of it. But I think it's so important because at least it like, I think we've been working longer during this pandemic, because our days, it's no more, at least for us, I know it's for everyone else too. My day starts at, 3:30 in the morning. Then I find the time to do
that. Sorry. No, when you said, I'm sure it's the same for everyone else. No. I don't make my people work at 3:30 in the morning. I don't think Ryan would be smiling right now if that were the case.
No. What happens? What I meant by I do, but I don't even use an alarm clock. I've just gotten used to it. But if you say that, I do that because it's easier to read and learn some new things, and plus we're global, right? But for the most part, I'm trying to catch up on certain things when it's quiet, and I'm away from all these Zoom meetings where you get so tired of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you catch up with reading or maybe doing something very different, and then I try to find some time to work out as well. So just to maintain my fitness instead of getting bigger, with the bulge or something like that. So I go for a workout, I come back, and then our meetings start for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think it's important to find something different. Whatever it is, it could be anything. I like that because it keeps me going in another direction, frees the head to do other things and meet other people. But it could be music, look at friends.
Yeah.
artwork and so on and so forth, or just, basic. As long as you're learning some new things, I think it always freshens the mind, if anything.
Well, you talk about how self-taught you were and how you kind of came up by just trying new things and different things, and now you're kind of more in a leadership role. How do you I kind of understand how you're personally battling burnout, but how do you help your team kind of deal with that when you have so much work on your plate? How do you do that from a leadership standpoint?
So I do this beyond here at work, right? I do it outside of. So one of the things that I've learned early on is to network completely. Like, so it's not like I have all the ideas. I learn from every one of you. I learn some new things, right? And yesterday I was just talking to someone, and she was asking me, "Hey, how do you do this?" And I was trying to motivate her to go in this direction. And I try not to, overwork any, whether it's colleagues, reports or anyone else. But you try to motivate them to follow their dreams and goals initially, and then the path will show them, the direction they want to go. Because for us who've been in the industry for a while, you've done so many other things along the way. And then he said, "Oh, it's this," and then it's something else, and so on and so forth. So I try to, and I encourage. I don't micromanage, so I encourage them to have their own thinking. That's, to me, is more important, because even after, like, I did my master's and all that later on, I was more intrigued with the more difficult kind of things, if only because the normal things you'll pick it up anyway. So, and I encourage them to do the same. But then there are other areas. You mentioned it. I think we mentioned it along the way. Is there areas that I was mainly a techie first, and then I started learning business stuff. I started learning financials, all the stuff that I probably didn't like as much. But I learned that, hey, these things are going to help us, create that message across. And so those are the things that I encourage people to get forward with.
As we come up in this industry, one of the questions we like to ask our guests is if they had. I know we probably all had like dozens of people that we can name, dozens of people that have helped us. But has there been maybe somebody who you consider your greatest mentor?
I can't use greatest. It was along the way. Look, there was, like, when I was in the Middle East, for example, I met one of these. Again, like I said, I was just a person who would crack certain things and make certain things happen, right? And I was never intimidated by these boundaries. And one of these doctors that I met, Dr. Tahir, actually, he's an Egyptian guy. He was teaching at the University of Qatar, of all the places, but he was involved with the robotic arm of the space shuttle. And he would encourage me, "Hey, do this," because I was wondering, why would this doctor, robotics guy, ask me? But he would encourage me to think in those ways. So that was that part. Then along the way, there was other companies that changed, but, that had certain behaviors. One was another company here in the U.S. It was, we call it INS, International Network Services, which was acquired by Lucent then. But there, everyone was probably type A, and we'd be in the office from morning to night, and everybody would push each other on to do different things. And that was another great place. I spoke about Lucent and AT&T. AT&T, especially when I was at Bell, most of these guys were from Bell Labs, and almost everyone was a doctor. I'm thinking, hey, what are these guys up to? But you know what? These guys were so humble. So they was there, Dr. Jinshi and Dr. Prakash and all those. They were so humble. These guys, like, they had the dial tone. One of the guys had the patent on the dial tone and all these guys. But they were so humble. They encouraged you. And they always told us, hey, you guys you're doing something which is very different. So they pushed us in a very different way without, forcing you to think one way or the other. So it goes on. And here, I can speak in many other. I don't want to throw so many names because I'll forget other names.
No, that's okay. So it's nice just it's for us. It's just to hear like where people came up from and things like that, Our listeners are also avid readers. So we always love to ask for a book or two that you can recommend. It doesn't have to be on this topic. We don't care if it's what we talked about, but just curious if you have any books that you read recently that you think are great.
I don't know if it's recently, but it was actually that was another doctor, by the way, Dr. Memon in NYU, cybersecurity. We were doing, actually, it was a select group of people who are doing psychology and computers and all that. And he made us read, he said, pick up this book and it was just like off the cuff, right? Just read Thinking Fast and Slow. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal book. I was so blown away because it made us think, Dr. Daniel Kahneman, Kahneman, but he's like phenomenal. And I can go delve into the details of that, but it's such a deep and nice book, the thing of experience versus that. But there's so much to it, and I'd encourage anyone else. Another one that earlier in my career, it was, Stephen Covey's, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was because it made you think about yourself, synergy, and then how to keep growing. And there was also, around that time, also was Good to Great by Jim.
What was it one?
Jim Collins, Good to Great.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
that was an odd book because now maybe those things that he mentioned then, some of the people that he mentioned are not necessarily the right. But he wanted to, at that time, and he was talking about, it was the leaders that made the companies great, and they were very disciplined people, they're very humble, and so on and so forth. That's why, to me, it was those little human factors that he spoke about. So those are
excellent
the 3
recommendations. Thank you. Thank you for those. Yeah, Thinking Fast and Slow is a great book. So that's a good one. And I don't.
And
know
obviously, it's your books. Your books are also very good. I wish there's so much to learn also from this whole social. I hope it goes further along the way. And
Thank you. I can't thank you enough, Les. This was great to kind of get a different perspective, especially someone who's brought something new to the podcast. We haven't talked about becoming like an internal business consultant, so that's great advice for people listening, and that helps us answer one of the most asked questions here, which is getting buy-in from different business units and large companies. So I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And if people want to connect with you or they want to follow you or get more advice from you, where can they do that? What's the best way for them to reach out?
I think the best way is probably through LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah, if only because from there I can, we can always push through. Otherwise, if I set a number and it'll be just
No. What we'll do is we'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So we'll put that there. And if anybody wants to connect with Les and chat about these topics, we can gladly, you can gladly do that and find that down in the show notes there. Les, I can't thank you enough for coming on, being available today and having a fascinating conversation. Keep learning. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for having me. Thank you, Ryan, and your team.
And to everyone who's been joining us here, thank you so much for coming to this episode of the podcast. Next time on the Security Awareness Series, we'll be joined by Paul Asadorian from the Cyber Risk Alliance, which I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud. Paul, when he was part of his original podcast, was my very first podcast interview I ever had in my life. And now we're going back 13 maybe more years, and I'm going to have Paul on my podcast again. It's kind of cool. So anyway, join us next month for that episode. Feel free to check us out on social-engineer.org, social-engineer.com, innocentlivesfoundation.org, and don't forget, check out humanbehaviorcon.com, and we will see you next month. See ya.